like no one was thinking of us like in that way. And I just remember being like, WTF.
Why do you think weddings are attached to like ego though?
I really had to dig deep to speak up for myself.
Hey, sometimes life throws you curveballs.
This
You have
is
to do
true.
it twice.
Then just
now
go
when
to
you
court.
do the do-over, yeah, just go to court.
Yeah.
Mama always said, be careful of those island boys.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Rumbi.
Welcome to It's Layered Podcast.
We are under the Blackcast Network, powered by iHeart, and we are recording in person in studio.
Boom, 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 boom. Rumbi, I expect the air horns from you, please.
We just need to get that sound.
It's so good to be here in Bittersweet Studio with this beautiful setup by Pink Lady Picnics.
Yeah.
Enjoying our high tea, our soft girl life era.
Fully locked and loaded. This is our sign to the universe. We want a soft life 2025, and we wish a soft life 2025 for you and you and you, especially if you're a black woman.
Yeah, especially black women. We're not God's strongest soldiers for
We're
2025.
tired.
We're tired.
We've checked out.
We have played that role for too long.
Agreed.
Now we need to lean into our feminine energy and enjoy life. What do you reckon?
I agree 1,000%. And speaking of feminine energy, we're going to talk about a topic that is something that I guess we dream about since we're little girls. I didn't really do this, but apparently. And we're going to be talking about weddings.
Weddings.
Yay.
Walking down that aisle.
Did you dream about it as a little girl? Like, my wedding's going to be like this, or the other?
No.
Really?
I think I love to party, definitely. I love a good time. But wedding involves family. So immediately I was like, shots fired. No, this one. And also you like see a typical Zimbabwean wedding where you have rice, chicken, and coleslaw.
Yes,
and you cook the night before. And for women, it's stress. So I think, when I was lucky enough to take part in a lot of those growing up, that every wedding just made me think,
Not for me. Not for me.
like work, this looks like work.
You basically sound like a wedding hater. But you
I
did.
love a good wedding.
This
but
is true.
The African planning wedding.
Yeah,
woo.
it's stressful. So how did it go for you? Can you give us a bit of like a backstory of what your process was?
It's so funny because unintentionally we did like a COVID wedding before COVID even
was a
happened.
thing, yeah.
2019, so obviously way before. It's so funny because my husband had been like, 2020 when we got engaged, 2018, late 2018, it's like 2020 has a good ring to it.
Yeah.
And we can have time to save up, for a wedding, but whatever we want to do. And I was like, Jack, I'm not being engaged to you for that long. Like, that'll be over a year.
Yeah.
And I just, we were just doing a lot of things financially at the time. We were thinking of getting our first house together.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, and then how we do it, like you'd have to save all the money because how when you're getting a mortgage, they look at all your innings and goings with your money and they want to see stability.
True.
I was like, well, how would that make sense if we're doing this huge financial draining thing and then also like which one? So why don't we just get the wedding out the way and then hunker down to get our first house? So I remember I was like, oh yeah, let's just do it next year, let's just do it. So it literally was just like one step after the other in terms of wasn't really intentional.
Yeah.
But we definitely knew we wanted to honor, because my husband's from Germany, I'm from Zimbabwe, we live in Australia. We wanted to honor all three spaces and places. But then now, when you're doing the budget,
the budget ain't budgeting.
you're like, and then obviously Rora, which we spoke about just before Rumbi's one on previous seasons, we were like, how do you fit it all in?
It's a lot.
How do you? And especially because a lot of it was going to fall onto us. Like, family can support, but can support so much. They can't run it all. So when we got to thinking, we were like, okay, maybe we would just do Rora in Zim, an engagement party in Hamburg, which Rumbi also came to, and then do like a long table dinner after having a civil ceremony in Perth. So that is literally what we did. You know those COVID weddings you saw where people just strip it back.
Yep.
Just you and your very, very close few, or go to court and it's just you and your witnesses, and then after do a dinner. That is literally what we did. So we're trendsetters, guys. Just letting you know.
But for real,
we set
before
but like
it was
unintentionally,
for sure. Yeah.
we set that trend, not knowing. Then when 2020 happened, you can best believe I gave my husband a side eye. Like,
What were you
I
saying?
know it all because 2020 would not have worked. But yeah, even that sounds complicated, right? That every week we were in a different location, but
Yes.
it just worked so well for us, and it made it accessible for all our family and friends. Almost gave you no excuse, right? One of the
You had
three
one of the
pick.
locations. Yeah.
Because surely if you're in our life, you're in one of those, close to one of those three locations. But it's not to say when you do it small, that doesn't come with its own stresses,
True.
which we'll get into.
For sure.
So, yeah. But how about you, Rimbi? How did you do yours?
Yo, so people always ask me like, would you do it again? And I say no. I say to my husband all the time, you better, like, this is it.
Yeah,
If you leave me or I leave you, I'm not doing it again.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful. Don't get me wrong. We had a Rora traditional wedding, and then we had a white wedding, similar to you, again, honoring the different cultures, going to Zimbabwe to do our Rora, honoring our traditions there. If you haven't listened to the Rora episode, go find it, as Amanda said, a couple seasons back. And then we had essentially the white, I struggle to call it white wedding, but the sort of court wedding, not even court wedding.
What people would call a white wedding, I guess.
And where you sign your
Yeah,
papers.
yeah.
We had it in the Czech Republic, obviously honoring that my husband is Czech. And listen, I agree with you, the family aspect. We were kind of fortunate because in Zim at the time, this was 2022 April, it was they'd hunker down for COVID, then open things up, like it kept on and off. So the maximum number of guests at the time for an outdoor event was 250 people.
Yeah.
Which I know a lot of people are like, that's a lot of people, but
For Zim,
it's
that's
not.
Typically 500 plus.
Exactly. So that helped dwindle down the numbers. And I think tapping on family to help with different like logistical aspects of it helps a lot. I remember sourcing a lot of things from South Africa because Zimbabwean prices just do not make sense.
Yeah.
I had the help of a good friend of mine and my sister who sourced and then shipped things over. That helped a ton. And having it in my parents' garden, so like the celebration. Because essentially what I wanted to do was to say to my parents, this is your day. So the actual Rora proceedings, and that happened with a much smaller group and was more intimate, then everyone comes and celebrates.
Yeah, which is quite typical.
It's
even we had the
typical.
same, because there's like certain roles people have to play, and not everyone is invited to that. It's very... I think always has been very nuclear for that part. Our version of nuclear. And then
you have people come.
Lunch or everyone. But I love how Rora, I mean, we talked about on our own the Rora episode, has kind of circled back and become more predominant than it was before.
Yeah, for sure. Because it used to be like, if people just did Rora, people would be like, huh?
Yeah.
But now we all overstand the cost of weddings. So
why do you think there's a pressure to have a wedding, even in modern society? Like, surely, why?
I mean,
COVID proved.
It boils back to that little girl thing. When you're a little girl, like you dream of this day. And obviously, capitalism capitalizes on people's dreams.
Yeah.
Right? So as soon as you say anything is a wedding, so for a lot of things, especially with Rora, I got other people to just say, I need this. For my Czech wedding, I said, I'm going to someone's wedding, not it's mine, just for cost implications.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's so expensive. People know you will go all out, just like how businesses capitalize on parents, knowing that parents want to give their children the best. So they're willing to fork out. Yeah. I don't know what you think. That's how I see it.
And I think it's like so somehow whoever really marketed this like stuck it down our you can't even imagine not having one.
Yes.
It's like if you don't have one, are you really married though?
Yeah.
You know? And I think COVID, a whole freaking pandemic, is what made people think, oh,
Actually,
is this a legal binding document? You
That
can do it in a
really-
legal office.
this really is a fact.
And that's it. Especially if you're not religious, you can just go with your witness and you're married.
Yeah.
And I think people had almost forgotten that. And I mean, we obviously for logistics did that, but now I think we're circling back to the ramping up again.
100%.
And I think it's also aspirational for some reason.
Yes.
People definitely use it as a couple. We've made our mark. You know, you see in a group of friends, people will try and one-up each other with
Yeah.
things, copy each other. I mean, Kim Kardashian and things. Like, I got married in
Oh,
Italy.
Courtney
that
and-
whole
and
Courtney
Kim.
and Kim. So it's like everyone throughout, whether you're a celebrity all the way, is just, weddings are just like,
And it's supposed to
a
be your
mark.
day. Similar, you know how some people will be like very chill, and then it's like it's their birthday, and they really like shine, like show up, like
Yeah.
look at me, celebrate me.
Yeah.
I think it's a sign that people don't feel seen all the
Yeah,
time or
exactly.
celebrated all the time. Whereas I was like cowering. Like I remember when you asked me, "What do you want for your bachelorette?" I was like, "I just want my people around me." Like I think it's a sign that maybe people feel not seen
Yeah.
or celebrated.
for sure.
Truly.
And family, it's a family emblem almost.
Yes.
You know, because then family also feels the need to step in. I remember at a friend's wedding, they were like, "Oh, should we do no alcohol?" And the dad's eyes almost bulged out of his head. Like, how are we going to do this wedding with my friends there?
Sober.
Rolling deep and
Yeah.
no sober.
Nope.
And then, you know, obviously in Zimbabwe especially, and I'm sure a lot of people know about this, Zimbabweans are known for drinking.
Yes.
Reputation for drinking. So now it's like, how are
dare
we going to
you?
have fun without it? So I think also for family, like, I don't have that feeling yet with Jerome. He's probably way too young, but I wonder when it comes along where I'm like, I have to,
Have it. Yeah.
you know,
And
you
your
even see some families out gifting each other.
Yep. Also with
So,
peers and all
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Speaking of family, how does one navigate all the demands of family, demands of friends? Because now you're seeing the example, it's like family saying we don't want alcohol, then the dad saying, but my homies, how do you expect siblings, spouse, and yourself when you're planning and having a wedding?
Do you navigate the demand? Do you? actually
Someone's
handle
going to be
it?
upset. That's facts.
Yep. You should know. I mean, it depends what type of person you are. I think this is where that brings that to the forefront. Some people are like, my parents are planning everything and I'm just along for the ride, especially if they're
Yes.
financially providing.
Yes.
Then some people are like, I want it this way. I've thought about it ever since I was a little girl.
Yes.
You know, it's like such an array. And I don't know how. I think for self, you have to just be able to communicate with your people.
Yeah.
And be honest, especially about your budget and your
Yes.
expectations. I would personally
I
say,
agree.
just to make sure that everything is done properly. You
Yeah.
have to obviously say, these are my limits. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. But really, as Rimbi said, expect disappointment. Expect people to think you need to provide everything that they've ever thought of
For
at
sure.
your own wedding.
How did you navigate?
Oh.
If you can give us.
I think I was really honest. So see, you can imagine when we had the chat, I started a group chat with all my tetes who I barely chat to,
Yeah.
talk about Rora. Then once we were having that chat, I was like, oh, by the way, the wedding is 2 weeks later and it's, you guys are not going to be there. Like, it's super small. And because we're choosing between Rora and a wedding, which one? I pretty much gave them the choice, but I knew what they would choose. So I
Yes, of
kind of like
course.
played the game. Family is really, especially Zimbabwean family, really rooted in Rora, and that's more personal. So I knew they would choose to do that. And there's this perception that you can always do a wedding later.
Yes.
You can always do a wedding when you're more financially stable,
Yes.
or even forgo one if things are really tough, or if family can't rally around you. So I gave them the choice. Like I was like, I can't do both. Choose one. They chose Rora. And then once they did that, I kind of knew, okay, now the wedding is just for me and our Australian family, which are our
Yes.
friends.
Your friends. Yeah.
But it was definitely not there was a bit of pushback.
True.
They're like, oh, so Germans don't get married? And they're like,
wait,
Oh,
what?
but then they don't do Rora. You know, so it was like back and forth. And then eventually it was like sunk in. And I think I almost used like the threat of, but then we also don't have to do anything, hey? Like y'all
And
are
then
in Zim.
Zimbabweans are like, that's the end of the world to have nothing.
And I'm here in Australia. For you know, I'm already married.
This is true.
Like, so I
Yeah,
think
this
I
is
just
true.
used a bit of practicality and also finances at the end of the day is
True.
what answered it for us. Because it was like, okay, you can have your opinion, but how much are you forking out to help us with that said opinion? And then when people realize, oh, I have to financially contribute, you realize people then, oh yeah, what you're doing is fine, great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, good idea. You
Yeah.
know, oh, you're also going to Germany to on. Ah, great idea.
And the opinions
You know?
are almost forced to be less because
Yeah.
they're not forking out.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
all dependent on you.
On you.
So that's
then-
almost like the benefit if you
Yeah.
are financing your own wedding
Yeah,
as opposed
yeah.
to.
So it was like,
Completely
oh,
agree.
okay, that's fine. Oh, this is new.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a running joke now in my family that, yeah, we were ahead of the time and we knew COVID was happening because we did like a COVID-style wedding before. But
Yeah.
really, even if COVID hadn't happened, that's what we had chosen to do.
Yeah.
And it worked for us. And that's the thing with weddings. You have to make it work
For
you. Whatever that looks like, it's for you. And so, you know, you go to some weddings and you're like, oh, this theme, Elvis Presley theme, or whatever it is. And you're like,
How did you come
how
up
did you
with
come
this?
up with it? But then
Yeah.
it's so them.
True.
So I feel like weddings, I guess they are a form of identity. People
Yeah.
use them to show what type of couple they are,
Yeah.
family they are.
That
etc.,
definitely
etc..
helped in terms of like our having to we foot the bill. And so that helped with the say.
Yeah.
And with numbers. You're managing numbers.
Rumbi, how did you manage numbers?
Like you said, honesty and like some straight shooting, some straight talks and kind of giving quotas to different sides of the family saying like, this is all we have because in Europe, unfortunately, you pay per head. It's not like in Zim where you can just make a plan and then having to allocate. Of course, some folks were rubbed the wrong way, but we also had to be honest to ourselves. We wanted to live after the wedding.
Yeah.
So you almost have to learn to step up. And I think what helped was we were aligned with my husband on what we were about, and that was a very key. So we never ever fought or argued like, oh, but I wanted, like we had agreed on how we wanted things to be, and then it was just like getting everyone else on board. Which is
But
not
did
always
you
easy.
have to? Because obviously, did you have to equalize numbers? Like, how did numbers? I'm just trying to think. Obviously, for the Aurora, usually typically it's
Zim side, of course.
and obviously you're in Zim. I guess
Yeah.
Tom would have but for Czech, how did you work that out?
So I just said it was their side now running, and you need to equalize so they shouldn't feel overpowered.
Yeah.
You know, with the Zim squad. But I mean, they still did to some degree. But yeah, it was really like it's their time to shine and budget.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Why do you think weddings are attached to like ego though? Because I feel like, you know, I kind of touched upon that saying, you know, people feel like that's their time to shine. Why do
Yeah.
you think it's so?
It really is the event that all eyes on you and people get to see you, who you are, you and your person. Like, I think, so it's like, I want to come across or position myself this way in this light.
Yeah.
And so it is really much about like perception. If you think about ego, it's all about how I'm perceived, how I look to the world. I want to look a certain way and be understood a certain way. It's a lot to do that. And then culturally for us, I think families see it as a rite of passage that your child goes through this. And then comparison culture, which we've spoken about in previous episodes, also plays a part because my friend did this. I want to look even better than they did. And they did this and I want to do even more than they. So it's all keeping up with the Joneses. It's all kind of, people will think I'm not this if it doesn't look like that, so and so and so forth. I remember even at Rora, I wanted, you know, to wear pants. And it was like, oh, what do people say? So in the end, I was adamant that my bridal team wore pants, and then I wore a dress for like the blessing, but I still change into pants. So it's like it's like compromising and so on. And then I refused to like a head wrap. I was like, it's not going to happen. So it's things like that.
It's funny how like some things I just expected of you. But like, what do you think when it comes to friendships though? Because I feel like, okay, family, I guess, as you said, rite of passage, and typically in our culture with family, they do it for someone else. So have you noticed that? Like I've even been to some weddings where the bamkuru, that's like the older uncle, or the bamnini younger uncle will walk you down the aisle, not the actual dad.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'm guessing your actual dad would have done the same for
their
your
child.
cousins,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
Or, speeches are done by, instead of your actual, like,
I do think
you
sometimes
know.
it's like to get back, like I've done for everyone else, so it's my time to get back. It's almost
Yeah.
like an investment.
Yes.
But like in the Western world, you invest like money into accounts that realize an an appreciation. There's but like it's like I gave X amount at this person's
Yes,
wedding.
so now
So when
you
my
have
child's
to-
getting married, they're gonna bring this back, and it's like it's not guaranteed though.
Yeah, so people be like, oh, if people gift you, if you, and you're like, what if they don't?
Yes. So that came up as well around like, oh, you can just like take the money from gifts you get to pay for extra people we need. And I was like, no, that's like
Yeah.
bad, like budget.
Bad financial planning.
Yeah, no.
But with friends, why do you think our ego? Like, I reckon people also with friends want to feel special.
Yes.
And like if you're part of the bridal party, or if you're not, if you're planning the hands or
it makes you look
bachelors.
close, like we're really tight.
Yeah. And also a bit of the I did yours, you do mine starts to happen. But then also family structures, like some people will be like, oh, only if they have lots of sisters, all my sisters are my bridesmaids. But then if they have friends who don't have sisters, or then it's like, okay, but you were my bridesmaid. Like, don't you? It's always so funny. All these awkward conversations have to happen.
And I don't think you ever really have that conversation with friends. Like, so when it's my wedding, this is how I'm seeing it. And you will unfortunately not be, because you don't really have that. It just happens, and you kind of have to be like, well, this is how it's happening. Do you understand what I'm saying?
There's a lot of assumptions made. Like, we're friends. Of course I'm going to be. But it might
But you
not
don't necessarily have that. So,
yeah. Why do you think it's socially acceptable for wedding to, like, leave people in financial ruin? Because we all know. I mean, you said it yourself, like with the gifts, people were like, oh, if you get gifts, then you can cover the cost.
Exactly.
But you already paid for the cost, so you're already in minus.
And you may never recoup.
And what if that gift doesn't come through, or you get pots and pans instead of hard cash?
I really think it's a keeping up with the Joneses thing. And it only comes by once. And we know with the statistics around marriage and divorce, it's no. But
definitely not.
Yeah, I really think it is kind of like, if not for this, then what? We don't have other events. We don't have like, you've like retired and like maybe certain birthdays, like 40th, 50th, 60th, you do, but there's no expectation. There's no this like when you're 60, you have to have this huge party. Yeah. It may be common, but weddings, it's like, this is the one time you go throw it all out there and go big or go home.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that, for instance, you can get loans for weddings shows that it's all like capitalizing on people's desire to have maybe what is not within their reach at the time.
Yeah, and I think like social media doesn't help as well. Because now you're comparing yourself to a celebrity, like.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, they did this in Italy. My guy.
I be seeing all these Tuscany, what I'm like.
Sicily, all these places, and you're like, guy. But and also the funny thing is, and I think even like Kourtney Kardashian talking about that, showed this. Some of those weddings can be sponsored. Like I think
100%.
Dolce and Gabbana, like literally. So then it's like you are comparing yourself to something that doesn't even exist. Because even they're not paying for their wedding.
Yeah.
You know, isn't that just insane?
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know. It's like sometimes I'm like, are we okay as a people?
We're not. And I think we're going to be studied. I'm scared to. Sometimes you look back in history and you're like, what were they thinking? We are definitely going to be a generation where they're like, what were they thinking?
Yeah.
What are the realities of wedding planning that often aren't spoken about?
Ooh.
Because I feel sometimes you just like fumble into it, you're like, whoa, I never expected this.
I think family dynamics, like true.
Talk about that.
Family dynamics, like whether even if your parents are still together, whether if you're like now in a single parent home or your parents are remarried, whatever your setup is, it truly brings that all. If there's any unspoken conversations, any unspoken drama, any of that, if there's alcoholism in the family, if there's whatever it is, stinginess, people who don't want to help, like whatever it is, it just like brings it all up to the surface. You're like, oh yeah, you really don't roll with me. Or you really do roll with me. Some people just hunker down and help you with anything and everything you need for wedding, So it's just.
And I think also then finances is a big reason why that these dynamics come to the forefront, because anything to do with the money brings out different sides of people that maybe you don't necessarily
Definitely.
see on a daily.
Definitely.
And yeah, you're so right.
And I think people don't want to be judged. So people be like, we're not going to get that caterer, or we're not going to get this or that because of this and that. And you're like, huh?
Yeah.
You know, we're going to get married in the church because my church buddies can't, you can't just do a garden wedding. What is that? You know, so it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's like we use weddings as a way to be like, oh, this is how you are in the world. This is you.
I agree.
But it's not.
And I think for me, another reality of wedding planning is that what you envision is not necessarily what always happens, or you're always able to materialize that. It could be financially, it could be service providers wise, it could be something happens, or certain family members aren't there, that your father can't walk you down the aisle, or do you understand? And sometimes in those moments you have to let that go. There's a lot of letting go. I think that we don't
and compromise.
Realize. Yes.
And also you're not marrying yourself.
Yes.
So like imagine you're grappling these thoughts.
Yes.
Your husband, most husbands probably aren't.
Yeah.
But they're also going to bring their dynamics to the forefront, right? Whereas like even with friendships, I remember I've been to so many weddings where like, my partner only has 2 friends.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm rolling 5 deep. Who do I drop off the marital list now?
Bruh.
Because or vice versa. You only have 2 girlfriends, now you got to rustle up 3 more, So I find that, I don't know, but it's just, it brings each and every dynamic of your life comes to the
light.
forefront.
And within yourself too. You start grappling like expectations versus reality and all these kind of things. So
how do you reckon people should feel if they're not asked to be a bridesmaid?
I think it's normal to feel like if you wanted to be there for that person, that you couldn't. I mean, if I think of your wedding, I was able to be at your engagement party, but because I was starting my life anew in the Czech Republic, I couldn't make it to the Australian wedding. And it's something I will always know, like, I never got to be there. But at the same time, it was the best decision for me.
Yeah, but I don't even think like that. So I guess,
and also, like, I think I showed up for you in the way. So I understand the feeling, and I remember when you thought you couldn't make my wedding, like I understood your feeling of it. But I think it's also like the way it's supposed to be, it will be the way it's supposed to be. And the most important thing for you as a friend to a friend getting married is for you to be happy for them and support them. There are enough stresses around them, and for you to be like, oh, why wasn't I? It adds like a sour taste to what already is a complex. So I think it's normal to feel that way, but I think there are other ways to show up. You can write a letter, you can, do a video, you can give them, there's so many different ways you can show up if you're thoughtful. And I think people still underestimate the importance of thoughtfulness beyond just like monetary, but there's ways when you can show up for those you love in like unique ways. That say you still care and support them. It could be running around with them. It could be so many ways you can do that.
I think lots of friendships fracture around weddings, which is so, it's almost ironic, right? We're celebrating love, and then people, like some people tell you, that she was my bridesmaid and it was horrible. We weren't vibing, and I haven't talked to her since my wedding. Like it's so like, but it was a wedding, And then I think also like even people do ask you to be part of the bridal team, doesn't always necessarily mean it's like this amazing thing. Sometimes you're like now
it's stressful.
Now you're stuck with the bridezilla.
Remember that.
Or you're financially also putting in.
Yeah.
Like I think as you're saying about my wedding, I never thought that about you. I think I automatically knew, of course. I think that was what I was quite grateful about with our wedding. We're quite realistic of of how things work.
Yes.
I mean, even my own families weren't in the one in Australia, because who's about to be doing a visa, and like it just was too much admin.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like, but obviously you personally would think, it would have been nice, but I think you have to also have a touch of realism.
For sure. And that's why similarly,
things.
when you thought you could make it, I completely understood. And even like inviting people were like, oh, sorry, I can't come. I was like, it's fine. I don't want to put you out, because these things add up, especially when you're in the age of like where everybody is getting married around you. But based on our experience and what you've learned through getting married and all that, what do you wish you'd known about weddings before, and what would you advise your younger self on?
Communicate. Honest
To
communication.
who about what?
About everything. So like we're talking about bridal party. If you do have a homie who's like making a joke like, I can't wait at your wedding, and you know they're not going to be one. Like let's start also be
As plant the
like
seeds.
yeah, planting seeds or explaining a situation.
Yeah.
I think once people like feel like I feel like when people are blindsided, that's when
Yes.
this problem starts. So whether it's financially blindsided, like, oh, I didn't realize I'm a bridesmaid, I have to pay for it. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Like be honest. Okay, guys, girlies, if this is what if this is what I'll be expecting, you're gonna maybe fork out for your
Yeah.
own dress. It's gonna be a destination wedding. It's gonna like always be, but then also realize in doing that you're gonna get the feedback back, and then how you
Yes.
deal with that. So if someone says, "Oh, sorry, I really can't afford these Louis Vuitton shoes you want us to all wear,"
Yeah.
and then what does that mean?
Understand it,
You know,
yeah.
either you pay for them or you don't. Do you put that within your budget or not? So I feel like it's open honesty in every aspect, but especially like obviously relationships or relational, telling your parents if something's gone too far, or it's just be prepared for awkward, honest conversations. Don't avoid them,
True. I agree.
because whichever way it's gonna come to roost, bruh.
Ish. And you've hit the nail on the head around like be prepared to stand up for yourself. There's one thing I would give myself advice on is like trust yourself and know you are your best advocate
Yeah.
in those situations.
Yeah.
I think something I learned during our wedding process is that you can be generous in how you approach your wedding, but don't expect everyone around you to be selfless or make you the
Make you feel
priority.
Yeah, they also want to feel.
They also
how they
have their
feel.
own sort of agenda, and you should probably be a bit more selfish. Is
Yeah,
probably what I
yeah.
would say.
And communicate with your partner too.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
sometimes he doesn't get the dynamics, and it's like, oh, why don't we just do like, that's
Yeah,
not how it works in this
100%,
family,
100%.
or so
There's so many little things I'm like, we should have just been like, whatever. I would have gone on honeymoon immediately after. I
Yeah.
think we traveled with my parents because it was their first time to the Czech Republic.
yeah,
Wouldn't do that again.
yeah. I
would
was actually gonna
definitely-
ask what if
I
there's
would
something
definitely
you would do.
just
What would
be
you
like,
do
guys,
again?
I love you. I'm out because I ended up being very frustrated, like spending so much time in close proximity with my parents, doing
Yeah.
everything for them after we
had already labored on the wedding.
labored on the wedding day. And I think I really felt that loneliness for our Czech wedding. We did a lot of work, the two of us. We had wedding planners, thank goodness. But I mean, my husband had to go pick up his parents and drive them to the venue. Like no one was thinking of us like in that way. And I just remember being like, WTF? Like that really
You're like hosting.
brought it hosting. It brought it to light. And my sister, she came about like a week or two early. She was like, you guys are really doing this alone. And I was like, yeah. So I think that was an eye opener. Be a bit
What
more
would you do
selfish.
different then, though, in that aspect?
I'd be like, y'all figure yourselves out. Like we planned like transport from the thing, and then people are like, no, I'm gonna come from there. No. At the honeymoon, definitely would do it alone, and yeah, a bit more adamant on certain things we wanted. Though I think I was quite clear on what I did or did not want, but I really had to dig deep to speak up for myself, especially with
Yeah.
family on certain things, which is hard, especially we don't speak like that where we come from.
Yeah, oh no, definitely. You just accept.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And last one, as we wrap this up, if you could do it all over again, what would you do exactly the same, and what would you forego?
Wow. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. Probably still going to the 3 destinations over 3 weeks. Because I feel like we saw a lot of people along our journey who, at certain aspects of our relationship, have been there.
Yes.
So like everyone got to play homage or
be a part of
enjoy the
your-
party.
yeah.
So definitely very, very happy we got to do. There's a lot of planning, especially
Yeah.
when you're traveling, and the jet lag, But I was very grateful, and I got to show Marcel's family Zimbabwe as well. So
Sure.
I think it was that part I would do exactly the same. It was just so beautiful. For going, I think being a bit relaxed about creating memories. So
Okay.
especially for Zimbabwe, a lot of my family since then have since passed away. I mean, COVID then happened. So I think not having like a videographer or an official photographer, obviously people took photos on their phones.
Yes.
But I should have probably just gone that extra step, even though it was Rora. And Rora, mind you, in 2019 to now,
It's changed.
has drastically changed,
For
which
sure.
I'm really happy about. But at the same time, it also means that there was some stuff that's so standard now that wasn't then.
Yes.
And getting a videographer and a photographer is definitely, like, I've had some cousins of mine who are like, oh my God, the last time I saw that person was at Choro. Like, so it seemed like it brought a lot of people in my family just by chance
Together.
and to
Yeah.
not have proper documentation
Yeah.
for that is a bit sad.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the same thing happened in Germany, same thing. I didn't have an official photographer or videographer. Same thing in Perth. You know, we had friends chip in and help us. But like I should have. Now it seems like such a silly cost that I could have just paid for.
Yeah.
But at the time I thought, oh, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
You know, and
I
obviously I
get
would have to have 3 different sets of teams.
Yeah.
This was 3 different So I just thought on a long list of things to do, it just fell
It's a lot.
way down. But then now it's one of the lasting things that I could have had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get
so
that.
I feel like, definitely please get a videographer and photographer.
We'll just do it for your
weddings.
tenure.
Yeah,
when
we'll
you have
do it
your,
again.
we'll
But
do it
like,
for your tenure.
I just, it's sweet memories I have of all these people, but now
Yeah.
they're just in my head. Because a lot of people showed up and we're really grateful, but we don't actually have good documentation.
But I will
of it.
say, at least you still have that memory. I
Yeah,
don't know how to explain
true,
it.
very
Like,
true.
imagine you'd be like, well, I'm not doing any of this.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you
Thanks for
still have
saying
that for sure, that
Yeah,
memory.
Yeah.
For me, I think I loved both my weddings. I think my vision, I was very like sure on
It
what I
was
wanted.
beautiful.
And I think I love that I paid homage to like Zim. Like we ate out of
Metal plates,
and
yeah.
what. I remember my mom was like, huh?
Plates
And I
the
was,
Simbi.
and I literally was like, yep, I know what I want. And I
was
and I just
beautiful.
knew it. Even the tent, if I tell you how we
Yeah.
hunted for that tent, the stretch tent, and they're like, no, just get this. And I was like, no, I knew
They want to get the standard.
the standard,
tent.
but like I just had it. We had like hay for people to sit on during the bliss. All these things is like trusting my
Yeah,
vision.
It was a beautiful
And I think it
vision.
was a good reminder that you do have that creative bone and like there's something there. And to trust, again, I keep saying trusting yourself, I think is a big thing. Because then I can still sit here and be like, I'm so happy with that turned out. I will change what I said about the honeymoon and all that dynamic for sure. And I think I would invite more friends
Okay. To which one?
to our Czech wedding.
Czech wedding.
I think I would invite more friends because friends have really shown up more in a lot of ways than family, which is a really interesting thing because I think our parents' generation, who we were talking about this, it was a different dynamic.
Yes.
Family showed up. But for me, I found that friends really show up the most. So
agree.
I would definitely shift that around. But yeah, I'm glad we timed it all. We did 2 in 1 year, which is mad. I mean, you did 3 in like a couple of weeks. But yeah, and I wouldn't have been so generous. That's what I'll say.
With your time, with
Our money, with our
Yeah.
effort. I think I love how like generous we were with our like bridesmaids and team because obviously you were there because you guys had our back. But there's some things I'm like, we don't need to do all that. Nope.
Team too much.
Team too much. Yeah.
It was beautiful, so we appreciate whatever it was you were
Thank
doing.
you. But yeah, this has been good, like going back down memory lane. Because we talked about Aurora, but we never had this conversation.
We talked
around
about
weddings.
dating, we talked about marriage, but like
I think I was just scarred.
weddings,
Because it's draining.
it is
Yo.
very draining. And you almost like, for you and I were such planners, you
Yeah.
live in your head.
Yeah.
And sometimes even on the day, I had to keep you had to keep reminding yourself to actually enjoy your hard labor after
For
planning.
sure.
I remember we were up at 2 a.m. for my Aurora cooking. And by the time you're like serving that food, you're like, your best be
Be eating it and enjoy
eating.
this.
But like, yeah,
I agree. I definitely did that, and it was the best decision because it was the most perfect 2 days.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
could not have I enjoyed it. Things didn't work out. Like our translator for the Czech wedding didn't arrive, but I was calm.
Yeah.
You know, the
And
dance floor
people
thing
didn't even realize,
come.
really.
I was fine.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
don't be a
The dance floor
bridezilla.
didn't come. You see, these are things that
Yeah, you don't know until
when
you
you're
know.
having a good time.
Yeah, exactly. Anywho, But yeah, thanks so
Yeah.
much. Thanks for listening. Let us know how your weddings went.
Yes, please let us know.
What
in the
advice you would
comments.
give
And if you're in
other-
the thick of planning a wedding,
Yeah.
good luck, sis.
Good
we
luck.
see
We feel you. We see you.
You can do this.
You can do this. Just try do it once in your life, not more than.
Hey, sometimes life throws you curveballs.
This
You have
is
to do it
true.
twice.
Then just
now
go
when
to
you do the
court.
do-over, yeah, just go to court. See you
Cheers.
guys.